that the FBI and the CIA deliberately are not pursuing numerous leads linking the Saudi family itself, the Saudi regime itself, to the September 11th terrorists. Direct links. Direct links. Two of the hijackers, Khalid al-Midhar and Nawak al-Khazmi, got Saudi royal money while in California from Omar al-Bayuni and Osama Basnan. And do you know where Omar al-Bayuni and Osama Basnan got the money to finance the attack on September 11th? From the bank account of Saudi Arabia's ambassador in Washington, the wife of Saudi Arabia's ambassador in Washington. It's at Washington's Riggs Bank, and it's the bank account of Princess Haifa al-Faisal. Al-Faisal. These Arab names. Anyway, may their names in memory be obliterated. Princess Haifa al-Faisal, who is the wife of Saudi Arabia's ambassador. Saudi Arabia's ambassador is Prince Bandar. Prince Bandar. Hello, I'm Prince Bandar. The wife of Prince Bandar, Princess Haifa al-Faisal, out of her personal bank account came the money to pay for the rent and pay for the expenses for the people who crashed those planes into the Twin Towers on September 11th. This is from the Joint Congressional Committee. It was in the New York Nazi Times on November 23rd, 2002. It was in Newsweek on November 23rd, 2002. And since then, you've seen it all over the media. It's been everywhere. We're the only ones who told you this. We're the only ones who told you this. And by the way, Princess Haifa al-Faisal is not only the wife of the Saudi terrorist ambassador in Washington, and that Saudi embassy is a nest of terrorist intrigue and mass murder against Americans. Not only is Princess Faisal the wife of the Saudi ambassador, she's also the daughter of the late king of Saudi Arabia, King Faisal, who was the king just before this king. King, disgusting animals. In other words, he was the guy who sat in the air-conditioned tent before the guy, the present king who sits in the air-conditioned tent, with air-conditioned camels. She's the daughter of the king and the wife of the ambassador to the United States. This is what they use their embassy in Washington for, to finance planes crashing into the Twin Towers. And George Bush tells us, after this was revealed, he was asked about it, and he said Saudi Arabia is cooperating and is an ally in the war against terrorism. He is a liar. All of the Democrats and the Republicans and the liberals and the conservatives who suck up to these Arab terrorist mass murderers are liars. Liars. This came right out, the money for the attacks came right out of the Riggs Bank in Washington, where there is a bank account in the name of Princess Haifa al-Faisal, the daughter of the King of Saudi Arabia and the wife of the ambassador Prince Bandar. And the money went to pay for the rent of the actual people who actually crashed those planes into the Twin Towers. And we're being told, well, but that's an indirect link. Indirect? She's financing what they're doing here. Why is she paying their rent just before they crashed the planes? And what, indirect? Are you kidding me? They have telethons on Saudi television supporting suicide bombings. And then she's paying the rent for the people who killed the 3,000 Americans, and Saudi Arabia is not part of the axis of evil? And George Bush continues the lie, the big lie that Saudi Arabia is our ally? What, are you kidding me? We were right about Saudi Arabia, and the Joint Congressional Committee, by the way, is criticizing Bush for this, and they're criticizing those two traitors to this country, those two self-hating Americans, George Tenet, that American traitor George Tenet, who's the head of the so-called CIA, who is a traitor to this country. A traitor. And the other traitor, Robert Mueller of the FBI, who deliberately are not pursuing leads and are deliberately covering up for the Saudi regime. They are covering up. And the Joint Congressional Committee, Democrats and Republicans, unanimously have found so far that the FBI and CIA, they're putting it politely, they're saying the FBI and CIA are not pursuing numerous leads linking the Saudi regime to the 9/11 terrorists. That's the report they put out. They're not pursuing leads. And they wonder why. And Bush keeps telling us they're our allies. Let me tell you something. You continue to put up with these lies. millions of you will be killed. Millions. Millions of you will be wiped out because Saudi Arabia is building nuclear bombs now. Egypt is building nuclear bombs. Iran is building nuclear bombs. These countries intend to use them. They know already. They know from September 11th that they can finance terrorism, mass murder, and slaughter huge numbers of Americans, and they're still going to have the president and everybody else tell us that they're allies. They're going to get away with it. They're going to continue to have this unbelievable ability to have the joy of killing infidels, which is their dream, which is the Muslim dream and Muslim command, and it's what they finance. They're going to continue to have this great pleasure and get away with it. Nothing will happen to them. What would happen if they found that Saddam Hussein had paid the rent of the September 11 hijackers? You know what would have happened to Saddam Hussein? You think Saddam Hussein would still be in power now if that happened? You think they would have worried about UN inspectors and weapons inspectors and all this other nonsense? You know how fast George Bush would have gotten Saddam Hussein out of power if it had been Saddam Hussein? But because it's Saudi Arabia that did it, so, Saudi Arabia, you can't. Why can't you? Who the hell are these animal murderers?
I had many meetings with O'Neill over the years, who is no longer with us. He left the FBI eventually to become the head of the World Trade Center security and was blown up and killed in the September 11th attack.
Really?
Yeah.
That's ironic, really.
Yeah.
Very ironic.
And we used to have a lot of arguments in the beginning. After a while, he began to see and began to agree with me more and more in what I was telling him about the Muslim world, about the Arab world, about what they were planning. He began to see it, and he began to fight against his superiors until he was pretty much forced out of his position because he, as a matter of conscience, couldn't go along with this anymore. He realized that the American people were being set up for terrible attacks because there's one thing that we can be sure of in the United States and in Israel. The people who run this country, whether it's the government or the media or the big corporations, the people who have real power will do nothing to jeopardize our relationship with the Arab oil-producing countries, even if it means millions of Americans getting killed. They will not jeopardize our relationship with Saudi Arabia and those countries, no matter what. They know the Saudis financed the bombing of the World Trade Center on September 11th. They know the so-called Muslim charities in Riyadh were used to pay for it. They actually have a direct money trail.